Math 7 Unit 8, Lesson 4.1, or 4, Part 1. We'll be going over sampling methods and talk about what bias and validity are in this video. The next video we'll be going over a bunch of examples. First, the vocabulary. The term bias means favoring subsets of the population over other subsets. And it's important to realize that bias can be intentional or unintentional. By the way, where it's favoring, it could also be disfavoring or having a section of a subset of the population that is unfavored. Conclusion is the inference made about a population by looking at collected data and statistics. For example, based on a survey, 70% of the population prefer candidate A. Now, they didn't survey all of the 70% of the population. They only surveyed a small fraction of the population, and they made a conclusion based on that survey. And validity, the degree to which a conclusion can be considered reliable based on sampling techniques, and the degree to which bias is minimized. The conclusion above is invalid because those surveys were chosen because they were known to have more favorable view of candidate A than candidate B. So as far as things go, with statistics, you want things to be as valid as possible. And to be valid, you need to reduce bias as much as possible. So here's a couple of things to get you thinking. The manager of a local cell phone company wants to conduct a survey to determine what kind of music ringtones people typically use. Example 811. Suppose she decides to survey the listeners of a rock radio station. Do you think the results would represent the entire population? Explain. Well, if you think about it, I don't think so. No, not all of the population listens to rock music. The sample is likely to favor rock music to a greater degree than would the whole population. Suppose she decides to survey a group of people standing in line for a symphony. Do you think the results would represent the entire population? Explain. Well, and that probably not as well as the first one. Anyway, because not all the population listens to instrumental music. The sample is likely to favor instrumental music to a greater degree than would the whole population. Okay, here's another option. Suppose she decides to mail a survey to every 100th household in the area. Do you think the results would represent the entire population? Well, that seems better because anybody could be in that 100th household. So yes, 1 out of every 100 households seem to not favor any music type. However, there's usually a however, the survey may be less likely to be returned by some groups within the population as compared with others. And these would just be differences between different people. A side note as it deals with statistics, and this kind of deals with society as well, the differences in how different people think and see the world leads to most bias. In fact, if you have preferences, if you like some things over other things, you have bias. People have different likes and dislikes, as well as different experiences. People will see the world through their own eyes. The goal of statistics sampling is to reduce bias as much as possible. By studying bias, you are better able to spot it. If you are really good, you can even spot it in yourself. And it's important to understand that everybody has bias, and there are certain types of bias you should not have within yourself, but there are other types of bias that aren't going to hurt anything, so they're not really so bad. Okay, here's our sample types. There are 3 different sample types you should become familiar with. The first is a convenience sample. Now, if you think about the word convenience, we have convenience stores. That's stores that are small and you can quickly go grab things and check out and be out very quickly. Those are considered convenience stores. Convenience just refers to something being easy. Now, a convenience sample is a sample composed of members of the population that are easily assessed. Members of the population that are easy for you to get data from. This is a very common mistake made in sampling. Here's a couple of examples. To represent all the students attending a school, the principal surveys an honors English class. Now that would be very easy for this principal to do, but you can see how it would induce some bias. The students in an honors English class may not have the same likes and dislikes as the entire population average. Okay, next example. To represent the opinion of all teenagers, a 13-year-old asks their friends at lunch. All right, this is a very common bias that everyone pretty much falls prey to. They think that most people think the way their friends think, or the way they think, because that's who they interact with the most. There are a lot of people in this world that do not see the things the way you do. Okay, the next type of sample is also biased. It is a voluntary response sample. Voluntary means you're willing to do something. So a voluntary response sample is a sample composed of members of the population who want to or agree to participate. Some examples. To represent all the opinions of all voters, a news organization puts a link on their website. 1,000 people click and fill out the survey. And of course they talk about it on their news program. Of the 1,000 people we surveyed, this percent of them don't like this person, or this percent of them like this person. And that's voluntary response. It induces bias because only those who want to participate actually do. Next example, an advertisement encourages people to click a link and vote for their favorite TV series. Okay, that's something you probably have seen something like it before. A lot of things online. Click here and vote. Click here and vote. Now, this one, I actually agree with the fact that it is voluntary response, and that is U.S. elections. Now, no one's forced to vote. Wants to vote, go through the process of voting, and it is a voluntary response. But it goes back to the old saying, if you don't vote, you can't complain. Unless you're under the age of being able to vote, then I guess you can complain because you didn't have the option to vote. Okay, next type of sample is a simple random sample. There are a lot of different types of random samples, but nothing we're going to get into at the 7th grade level. Description: a sample in which each member of the population has an equal chance of being selected. So random samples, a true random sample will not have any bias in it. Now, it is extremely difficult to eliminate all bias, so keep in mind that even if something has a little bit of bias, we'll usually go with it because it's almost impossible to get rid of all bias. We're just trying to minimize it as much as possible when we do statistics. Here's a couple of examples. Everyone's name is written on a piece of paper and put in a hat. Names are drawn and those people are surveyed. If you have a small population where you can easily throw the names in a hat, that would be a great way to get rid of bias. Things are going to be random. Next example. To determine the opinion of the whole student body, every 10th person to enter a school is surveyed. Now it looks like you've got people posted at the entrances and they count, and every 10th person gets surveyed. They get asked the question. Anybody could be that 10th person, so it's a really good random sample. It's as far as random samples go, it's probably one of the easier ways of doing it. You just have to have someone at every door to survey the 10th person coming in. Okay, that's the end of the first video. Please watch the second video, and thank you for watching.